And a very warm welcome to everyone from not such a warm evening down here in southwest France, and maybe it's better where you are. It's an enormous pleasure to introduce Lars Muhl to you. We met down here in this area and have shared a number of meetings actually in Montségur, and some of you will be familiar with Montségur, and I'm sure he's going to talk a little bit more about it. And just to say how I was introduced to Lars was through a mutual friend, Tess, who's on the call, I believe, tonight. And she sent me a message saying I absolutely had to read this book here, the O manuscript, which is a few hundred pages, 530 odd pages, but in fact it's three books in one. The first is the Seer, then the Magdalene, and then the Grail, all very important topics. And so eventually Lars and I met up down here, and we shared a common interest in the feminine in Christianity, in the Essenes, in the Aramaic origins of Christianity, in mystical approach. And I also happen to be, and most of you won't know this, I happen to be a quarter Danish, and my grandmother was Danish, and Lars is obviously Danish and speaking from Denmark this evening. You may also, if you've known see anything about his biography, see that originally he was a musician, and then he went through a very challenging transition, some of which he might describe to you tonight, entered on what you might call an initiatic path with an extraordinary seer called Calais de Montségur. Anyway, tonight he's going to be talking about his new book, The God Formula, which I've read and reviewed for the next issue of Paradigm Explorer. And it's very nice, as I say, very good to see so many of you on the call this evening. So I'm now going to hand over to Lars. Lars, a very warm welcome, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. It's an honor to be here with you tonight and with all your participants. I'm asked to talk a little bit about my latest book, The God Formula. But, you know, if some of you are speakers, inspirational speakers, and you do talks and so, you know that whatever you are asked to talk about, you will always talk about the thing that really are your topic, you know, and you cannot change that. I mean, if you have been studying as I have and as David have since our youth, you have to follow suit, so to speak, because one card is on the table, makes ready for the next two and the next three and the next four, and hopefully it evolves in that way. And it certainly did for me, because my path started when my little sister died in 1960. I was 9, just becoming 10, and my sister was 6. And of course, such a tragic event had some severe, what do you call it? It was really something that changed my life in a very forceful way. So I started to become very sensitive. That's the best way to say it, really. And very early on, I started to my path, the Jesus path, so to speak. I come from a working class background with no religion whatsoever, you know. Like today, most Christians haven't ever read the New Testament. Most Christians today don't know anything about what their hero Jesus is all about. We go to church and we call ourselves Christians, and yet we cannot seem not to be able to speak about it. Just think about you coming down to a cafe tomorrow morning and it's full of people, and you and your friends start to speak about Jesus or the Holy Spirit. you will quickly find out that you have to lower your voice if you are not being taken to the asylum or something, you know, or people think, oh, you're crazy people from a sect or something. And isn't that weird that we are not able to, or are not allowing ourselves to talk about an issue that is so important as our spiritual life? You know, the old wise man, Carl Gustav Jung, he actually said that all sicknesses stems from a religion life that is not evolved. That we have a seed of religious feelings and yeah, something within us that needs to be unfolded in order for us to evolve in any important way, in any way that matters anything. So that is why very early on, because also when I went to the church, I thought there's something missing here. There's something that is not right, and I think that's why a lot of people is not really in tune with what is happening there. But yet still, we have to. I mean, I say to my friends, if you don't believe in God, if you don't have any feeling towards this, why are you members of a church then? Then go and get out of it and do something else. Go to football or whatever you think your religion is. But you know, there is a saying actually in the New Testament of Jesus, that says a man or a country, a town that is not in alignment with its own purpose, highest purpose and calling, cannot stand, cannot be, must dissolve. And I think that is, you know, when you have been working with some of the things that I'm going to share with you tonight, because the Essenes and Jeshua, they had deep insights in those things, you know, how that if you're not in alignment with who you are supposed to be, you know, remember when you came into this life, into this incarnation, you had a calling. And that calling was so loud until there was some sounds that started to become even louder than that calling. And in the end, you could not hear that calling because there were so many norms, so many well-meaning people around you who wanted to tell you what was right and what was wrong. And no, we don't do this here. You need to do this or you need to do that. So suddenly, you could not hear anymore. Yeah, that's why, you know, the saying of Jesus, Yeshua in the New Testament, let those who have ears hear and those who have eyes see. It's really, he's talking about that all the time. Please open your eyes and your ears and be attentive. Mm-hmm. That's all it takes to start to walk the path. Just to be silent for just a few moments and open yourself up. Allow yourself to open up. I would like to share with you some of the things in the Bible that I found interesting, and you have probably heard about them before. And I mean, the good news about what I'm going to tell you is that we are all already enlightened beings. You are already enlightened. I mean, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to read books. You don't have to take any courses. If you only know that you already are enlightened. Because if you know that, you can start working, not out there, but in here. Because that is what it takes, you know, that you really start to direct your attention the right place, you know, towards the right place. You remember? Yeah, I also had to say the thing about the Aramaic language. In the 80s, somewhere in the 80s, I was already into all the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi scriptures, you know, the Gospels that didn't make it to New Testament and all this. I found that so exciting, especially because they were sort of secret or forbidden gospels. And of course, everything that is forbidden, you need to go and investigate, of course. So I did not really go into the New Testament. I have read it, but I've never really gone deep into it. So suddenly in the 80s, I stumbled on the Aramaic language, and it really hit totally clean into my heart. I mean, I was hit immediately. And ever since that day, I found that language. It had been the tool that have opened my heart every day with new discoveries and new insights just by reading the New Testament from an Aramaic perspective. And also the Bible, the Old Testament, because a lot of the Old Testament is actually original written in Aramaic. Also the New Testament was original written in Aramaic. But today we only have the first version of the New Testament we have in Greek. But if you take the Greek and you translate it back to Aramaic, oh, abracadabra, it opens up like a magic box, and then all the secrets or all the insights appear once more. So that's the beauty of it. But do you remember in the Genesis, first book of Genesis, we were told that in the beginning, before everything was actually created, God's presence was hovering over the waters. Do you remember that? Just think about if you suddenly have a vision about something that you want to create. You want to write a book. You want to sing a song. You want to create something, a chair or a table. And first, before you manifest anything, the idea of a chair, of a table, a song, a book are present, in the vision. So just imagine that before anything was manifested physically in this universe, before the universe was even created, there was the idea of it, the waters. It was hovering over the water, the ethereal. And that God, the presence of God that was hovering over the water was the Shekinah, the feminine part of God, of the Godhead. Nothing comes into this world only through the feminine principle. Everything comes through the manifesting power of the physical world, the feminine, the Shekinah. That is why actually the earth belongs to the feminine principle. That's why we call it Mother Earth. Just think of the Latin verb mater, mother, materia. So it's all connected. We'll get back to that later. But the Shekinah was hovering over the water and manifesting everything as he went by. And just like, with a magic stick, manifesting everything. We can also read that God created man in his image. As man and woman, he created them. Yeah? What is that all about? What does God look like? What is that kind of, if we are born in his image, what does it really mean? Think about it. You see, there is a connection, a red thread from that saying directly to Jesuas in the New Testament, in the Gospel of Luke, and in the Forbidden Gospel of Thomas, where he says, remember, the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. Yes. In order to understand the deeper level of what Yeshua is really saying, because what I'm telling you now was the main knowledge and insight of the Essenes, and therefore also Yeshua. I mean, they were seers, they were healers, they were eminent astrologers, astronomers, they were fantastic soothsayers, they were dream interpreters, and you know, all these things, scribes, wonderful scribes. But first and foremost, they hold the secret of creation. In order to understand what Yeshua means and how profound that knowledge is, you need to know the Aramaic concept of kingdom of heaven. And I present here my fantastic PowerPoint show that I've made of myself. And I hope I can get a patent on it, because I find it very genius myself. You know, I got the idea many years ago. Unfortunately, I found out some other bastard have also found out the same. But anyway, you see here, Malkuta Deshemaya. Malkuta meaning kingdom, Deshemaya meaning heavenly. And just by the sound of it, just feel it. Try to say it for yourself. Malkuta Deshemaya. Malkuta Deshemaya. Kingdom of heaven. You see, the Aramaic is built from root words. A root word is potential, a possibility, awaiting its activation. And it's activated by our deeds and about our words. When I take a word like Malkuta Deshemaya and I put some energy behind it, you know, it is manifested. And now it starts to work, you know. But we need to, if I could find myself in this mess, I would, oh, here it is. Just to show you what the root word in Malkuta, it is milk, like this. You see, M-L-K, milk. From that root word, there's other words in Aramaic that come from that is born from that. For example, angel, Malachi, messenger. Malachi and Malkuta is therefore familiar to each other. In what way? I won't come into here because that's a whole nother talk, but just for you to know how it works. But the most important root word is the root word in Shemaya, the Shem, as you see there. You know, to this day, the Jews are not daring to call the Lord by any name, so they call him Hashem. Ha being the definite article, like the master or the name. Hashem means the name or the identity or the image of God within us. Shem is actually that power that Yeshua is talking about, that light, you know, light like consciousness, or that sound, or that vibration that must not be put under a bushel. This is really an important saying in the New Testament that he's really stressing. Please don't do that, because then it's the same as you become a living dead. You know, you need to know what this power is all about. And guess what? The ayah at the end means which is forever. Deshemaya, heavenly, holds the image of God that in which we were born, And this principle we now are told lasts forever. It can never perish. So Malkuta Deshemaya is the kingdom of heaven within us that is forever. And it is so connected to another thing you find in Exodus. You remember when Moses, he went out to the desert and talked to God in the burning bush. He asked God, tell me what to do. And God said, you need to go and take the captives and bring them into the desert and away from the Egypts. Yeah, Moses said, but who should I say are calling us? Who are you? What is your name? So I can go. And he says, my name is Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. Asher, I am. Asher, who or what? Asher, I am. I am who I am. I am what I am. You know? And this is very, very profound knowledge. Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. What does it mean? It is the presence of God within every one of us. It is just imagine that you are standing in a dark room, not knowing that right in front of you there is a switch. And if you just turned on that switch, that I am within you would just lighten up the whole room and everything else. Maybe you're also familiar with the I am sayings in the New Testament, where Yeshua is saying, I am the bread of light. I am the light of the world. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am the truth, the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the true vine. Everybody have heard, most people know about it. But does that mean that Jesus is, or Yeshua is saying that he is all those things as a person? Isn't that really the person who is saying, yeah, I am this and I am that? No, what he says is, I am is the bread of light. I am is the light of the world. I am is the door, and so forth. I am is the way, truth, and the life. Because the I am is not only in me, he tells us. Because why? You are all children of God, he says. Remember, he said, it's written that you're all gods. How do we? He's referring to that image of God in which we were born. He's referring to the I am, to the presence of God. And we are going to talk about the presence of God because that is the most, as I told, the most profound knowledge and profound insight of these things in Yeshua. Because it's only through I am in this tradition that we are going to evolve and to really unfold all the potential that we were, and all the gifts we were given when we came into this incarnation. And the reason why we are here is actually to unfold these gifts and share them with as many people as possible. Remember, Jesus was saying, don't, I don't say for Christ's sake, but don't hid it underneath a bushel. On the contrary, take it up on the highest mountain and let it shine out so everybody will be enlightened by it, also you yourself. But it has all to do with allowance, if we allow it to do this. And that is something, I think exactly that is what is missing when we go into church. Then we are not told this from day one. And we are not told either that what Jesus is saying, if you follow my example, you will do even greater wonders than I. Okay, what did he do then? He was going around and sharing his I am with other people in order for them to recognize the I am in themselves. Because through the I am and through the Shem, through the kingdom of heaven within, we are going to be healed. and we are going to heal other people if that's why we are here. And I think we are all here in some way to heal the world, because the world have come to a sore spot. We are actually standing right there at the end of the cliff and at the threshold, looking into the void. And we really need to make the right choice now. And maybe you're a Buddhist, then go and find your goal there. Maybe you are a Sufist or whatever. But I find that I'm both a Buddhist, a Sufist, a Jew, or whatever, because I don't find that there's any real difference between any of the religions. It's only by definition, and it's only by ceremony, and by words, and it's exactly the same thing, But we are born in the Christian tradition, most of us. And when I met the Dalai Lama a few years ago, he was talking about, he did not understand when he came to the West, that he met people from the West that was clothed in orange robes and shaved like Buddhists. And not that it was wrong, but he just said, why do they do that when they have Christianity? When you have the esoteric Christianity, I mean, it's all there, he said. And of course it is. And I said to him, that's why we need priests that know about the esoteric way, because it somehow have died out. It's a dry kind of, there's no more living water in the well. The well has dried out, it seems. Yeah, then you have to fill it again, he said. And that's exactly what I've tried for many, many years. Not to go and tell anybody what to do or what not to do, because those days are over. All the guru worship and all these things are totally over. But I find that a teacher of today, or somebody who wants to share somebody with other people, cannot just talk about it. That's why we will do some practical things later on. And I also want to share with you how the whole thing about Mary the Magdalene and Yeshua worked out with the Essenes and all that. But first of all, this is so important that the main concept of or insight of what creation was all about is ever so important that we start with that, and that's why I start here. You see, the Essenes were also dealing with something that they called rasniye, the mystery of becoming. The mystery of becoming, rasniye. And maybe you can see there is a familiarity between the niye and the ihe. Yeah, you can see that. So, what is that to become? The mystery of becoming is all about the I am. Maybe you also remember that Moses at one time, when all the plagues were thrown at Egypt, and he's having a conversation. Moses is having a conversation with God, and God said, if you follow my law of light, you will be spared all the troubles, because I am your healer. I am your healer. So, I am is actually that part of God, our image of God we are carrying within us. That when activated, meaning when we discover it and really invite it into our everyday life, that will make the whole difference. Remember that I am the healer. I am your healer. And the art of becoming, the mystery of becoming, is to become what we were supposed to be. Because it seems that from the very first day we came into this life, so many well-meaning people tried to to shape us, and because in a very good meaning, they wanted the very best for us, our parents, family members, yeah, everyone that had a say. And later on, when we had idols of this or that, we liked that group or that artist, or we were actually very conservative in many ways, black and white. We like this, but not this. It was either the Beatles or the Stones. You could not have them both. Or it was Elvis Presley, or it was Cliff Richard. I mean, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. So what we should choose now, and we should learn right from the beginning, was remember who you really are. And we now want you to help you to activate the I am within you. And we would nourish it through all the years of upbringing, when we were in our education and everything. And we would learn what it would take, how to activate the presence of God wherever we are. And it's not that we need to people come to me, I cannot sit in the lotus position, so I cannot meditate. And that is, of course, a lot of bull. But, if we only knew that being enlightened already, it doesn't matter where we are. We don't need a church, The church is here. The holy of the holies are the secret chamber of the heart, the most holy of the holies. Do you remember when Yeshua was hanging on the cross and he gave up his life, the last breath, when he entered the bridge for the last time and went over to God? We can read in the New Testament that the veil in the temple was rent in two, like by lightning. It was like shoo. Because until then, people were not allowed to see or come near the Holy of the Holies. Only one man could do that, the high priest. He went there once a year. He went in there on the Day of Atonement. He went in and prayed for the people and for Israel. But now, with that sacrifice, as it was, suddenly there was no veil anymore to the Holy of the Holies, meaning that our hearts now are complete open to this, if we allow it to be. That's the secret. We need to allow this in order. And we can do every time we have something. I mean, every time. Don't think about doing a good deed. I mean, never think about, oh, I did this and I did that and it was a good deed. There's no such thing as a good deed. There's only you living up to who you really are. And if you live up to who you really are, you start sharing what you have with other people. Meaning also, if you pass by a baker and 500 kroner or the 100-pound or the 200-pound note or whatever you have in your is meant for her or him, you don't hesitate. You go and give it. You see, my first with that kind of charity was actually many years ago in the 80s, in the beginning of the 80s. I was still in the rock music business. I was in London in order to sign a contract for a record deal. So I have my first day. It's so cold. I'm in Camden Lock. Under the bridge is an old lady, with the really shaking, standing with an empty tin that she's stretching out in front of her. And of course, I cannot pass by. I have to do something. I've just changed all the money I had into pounds, and I wasn't rich or anything. So I forgot all about that. A 100-pound note in my world is really was a lot of money there at that time. But 100 kroner is not that much. So I thought I'll give her 100. And just the minute I just let it hover over her empty tin, and the minute I just let it go, I realized, wow, it's 100. Wow. And for a minute, I just stood there, completely paralyzed about the whole situation. And just for a split second, it just went through me. I need to change it. But of course I couldn't. I mean, you cannot take it back and change it into, forget it. But the worst part was that this lady, she did not even smile or look at the money or say thanks or anything. She was completely numb, and she couldn't care less. It seemed to me, and I was standing for some time just watching her, and I was thinking, strange. But one thing I got from it, my halo, I went and for my last money, I bought some Brasso, so I could, and the rest of the day I was the big man of, one of the saints, or one of the saints of God, I really, it made my day in so many ways. But I learned a lesson. And when I met the seer, that was part of his program also. Sometimes he just said to me, I was not prepared, do you have any cash on you? Yeah, what do you need? Yeah, what do you have? Because I have 500. Okay, he said. Now go down the main road and you find there's some beggars there. Find out who to give that money. But do it quick because we are doing some more. What? Yeah. So I went and just gave the money, And we should not think about these things. Every time we follow our natural urge, we are becoming, Remember what Shakespeare said, to be or not to be is the question. To be or not to be. Shakespeare knew about these things. Asnige, the mystery of becoming. To be or not to be. That's the question. Suddenly, it rings totally new when you know where from it stems, Shakespeare or whoever wrote those things knew. I know all the things that is going on about Bacon, and I have no opinion about that. That it should be Bacon who did the Shakespeare's thing. It doesn't matter to me, really. What matters is the work, not the person behind it. And I think that is also what Yeshua wants us to know, that when we really understand, I am the bread of life. No. I am is the bread of life. So now it opens up to us also. Who are you? Who I am? Who am I? Who are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? These are questions we really we ought to know about. We need to really find out what it's. Also when Yeshua, he met the Samaritan woman, and they're sitting by the well, the Samaritan well, and Yeshua is telling her things, and suddenly she says, are you the Messiah that we are waiting for? Are you him that I am, he says. I am who I am. Again, the same principle, the image of God within us that we are all born in. Now we need to activate it. So every time, and you can actually do it in the supermarket. You do it wherever you go. And I'll share with you some of the mantras or the prayers you can actually do. I'll also share with you because you remember, because this is very important when we are talking about Yeshua the Essenes and Miriam the Magdalene. Malkuta Deshemaya, kingdom of heaven. It's all there. You see, every letter of the Hebrew or Aramaic alphabet has a story. There's books written of each letter, of the meaning of a letter. M is mime, or mem. M is mem in Aramaic. And from mem comes mime, water. Yeah? And you remember that John the Baptist is saying, I baptized you with water, but there will be somebody after me that will baptize you with fire and the Holy Spirit. Yes. So now you have the mime here and the feminine water element. And down here you have the shim, or the S in Aramaic is the letter shin, which means fire, you know, or is representing the element of fire, the masculine. So there you have it, the feminine and the masculine. God created man in his image. As man and woman, he created them. Yeah? Just think about it. It's all in there. The whole creation in one concept. A concept that we are told is forever, and we are carrying it within us. So by just starting to think about it and accepting that it is so, is the first thing we need, the first step, of course, in order for us to know that it will actually, in the end, we will have a chance to activate it and unfold it. And every time we live up to who we really are, sharing what we give. There is another rule for that the Essenes were revering. That is, you cannot own anything before you give it away. It's only when you have given it away that you can call it yours. Let that stand just a moment. Another thing from these scenes, everything returns to its origin. Everything you send out returns to you someday, bad or good, whatever it is. One day you have to face everything you have done and said, everything you are given in it. Just think a simple rule like that, if we were living by that, what a simple and wonderful world we could live in, because nobody would then, every time somebody is going down, we are all kind of going down. Every time somebody wins, we all win. There's no such thing as one's dead is the other spread, or whatever you say in English. It cannot be. It's an illusion. There's only sharing. That is the only thing. All else just doesn't make any sense. So it is. I saw a wonderful film once. It was called The New World, by a wonderful filmmaker that I cannot remember his name right now, but he's amazing. And in it's at the time of just after Columbus, he came to South America and conquered everything. And all the missionaries are out there now. And suddenly there is one from the mission who are lost in the wilderness, and he's taken in by some of the Indians. And there's a love relationship between him and the daughter of one of the chiefs. And they cannot speak, but she's all the time just doing like this. Towards him, please. And of course, no words are needed. And that is the wonderful thing about it. Just by intention. Why are you doing what you're doing? I'm doing this. And there's so much love in there. There's so much caring. There's so much showing that you are welcome. Come here. My heart is open, like an open door. So you should remember the Essenes, they were a strictly male-oriented group. But that's the surprise about it, is that they also had women teachers, but only for certain of the elect ones. They had a hierarchy also. The oldest were, of course, you had you started as a novice, you came in, you gave everything you had, and everything went into a common kind of bowl, and everything was paid for. And you started there. You had a 2 or 3 year novice practice. After that, you went on and went on. And in the end, maybe you also became one of the elect ones. The Essenes society or sect was all started by Elijah, 700 years before Yeshua. And you can read about Elijah in the book of Kings 1 or 2. And he went to the Mount Carmel, where he established the school of prophets. And that was really the first, so to speak, the foundation of the Essene community. And from that, it spread to Damascus, to Jerusalem, to different places in the desert, and especially by the Dead Sea, Qumran, by the Dead Sea. And at the Qumran, at the Dead Sea, they established a university. And that's what you can go and see the ruins today. It's still there. But a lot of the scholars and scientists, that they really cannot find out how 5,000 men were living there, because it's not that big, you know. So they thought that they were living in caves all around. Of course not. You can actually read in the Old Testament they were living down by the coast of the Dead Sea, and they had their main village, so to speak, where today the kibbutz of En-Gedi lies. And En-Gedi was a kind of oasis where, and if you've never been there, it's one of the places you need to go one day, because it's beyond words, actually. But anyway, so the Essenes, they had one main purpose: to prepare the way for the coming Messiah. And the Messiah means the anointed one, exactly as the Greek Christos means the anointed one. A lot of people, I mean, here in Denmark, some people actually think that Jesus is the first name, and Christus or Christensen is the surname, you know, like, oh yeah, Jesus Christensen. But of course, we know that it's not so. Christ means the anointed one. So like John was the Baptist, Jesus was the Nazarene. Jesus, the Nazarene, meant not that he came from Nazareth, because we know today that there was no such thing as Nazareth at the time of Jesus. From the Jewish historian from that time, his name slips my mind now, Flavius, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he have described the Essenes very precisely, and it described whole of Galilee very, very precise, even to the, you know, smallest bump on the road, so, and no mention of Nazareth. But the Nazarenes had a kind of a camp there, and it was very close to the school of prophets. So you can imagine that Joseph and Mary, also being Essenes, were living as Nazarenes, because they were Nazarenes. And you can read in the Old Testament what Nazarenes were all about. You could not cut your hair. It had to be in the middle, what do you call it? You know what I mean. And you had to be a vegetarian. And they had a lot of other strict rules that they should live up to. So they were preparing the way for this teacher of righteousness, as they called him. You know, they had every now and then, like an avatar that came in when it was needed. They incarnated a teacher of righteousness, exactly as a kind of Dalai Lama in the Tibet tradition, you know. And you know how it is. There is some signs, and there was some signs that you can read in lots of the Old Testament about the coming of that Messiah. He had to come from Bethlehem, and he had to this, and he had to that. And there was a lot of signs they could go by. And there was a certain constellation of stars called the Melchizedek constellation. And when the time came, the three oldest elect ones from Qumran, which are just east of Bethlehem. So they came 3 wise men from the east, but it's only a few hours ride from there. Went and they read all the signs and they found the child. And we can read they took the child into the temple immediately, because there were 2 Essenes there, Simon and Hannah, who were both told that they would not die before they had seen the Messiah. So in order to get the last blessing for this, they took the child, and it was of course recognized by both of them. Simon actually said, "Now I have seen him, I can go, I can die in peace." And from there, they took him to Egypt in order to do all the preparations work right from he was not very old. And when the time came, they went back to the settlement in the school of prophets and the settlement of the Nazarenes. And when he was being confirmated, having his bar mitzvah, he was taken to Jerusalem, and you could read there as 12 years old. He was having a conversation with all the rabbis there. And there was a rabbi from the Pharisees called Hillel, who saw him also as the Messiah and wanted to present him to the other rabbis and get their kind of blessing for him also. But they completely was taken by him. They were full of pride. They could not handle that this child was so much wiser than them. So from there he was taken to the Qumran University, where he had his first real teacher, Judith, which was a woman, very, very skilled woman from the tradition of Zarathustra. But she was an Essene too. And she was the one who took him to the east and to Egypt and then back. And when he came back, the last initiation was actually by John the Baptist in the river Jordan, where he was baptized. And after that, the very last thing he did before he went on his mission was to go 40 days in the desert to meet his own shadows for the last time, to meet Satan, his own ego, and just get done with it. So he was ready to purify himself. And that cave where that happened is just the cave 4, a man-made cave that is just beneath the settlement of the university at Qumran. You can see it in one of my videos called The Gate of Light, where I'm performing one of the ceremonies there. But what did Mary the Magdalene, how does she fit into all this? You see, at the time of Yeshua, there was also an old Jewish prophecy about that when the Messiah comes, he must be united with the silver cup of the tribe of Benjamin. The silver cup of the tribe of Benjamin. What is the silver cup? You see, right from Moses' times, when Moses was leading his people through the desert, he had a sister called Miriam, who was a healer, a seer, and a singer, a dancer. But not, a dancer in that way. But she was dancing in front of the whole congregation, and with her, she opened up the stones and the cliffs, and water sprang from them. Yeah? And of course, there's a lot of metaphors in there, water being the living water that Yeshua is later also talking about. And to this day, in the Jewish tradition, you have this, that if you go up on Mount Carmel, on the mountain of Eliah, you can see down at the well of Miriam, the sister of Moses. So you have Eliah, the prophet, who later became John the Baptist. And you have Miriam, who later became Miriam the Magdalene, who is an early incarnation of her. But where is Jesus in all this? He was the pupil of Elisha, of Elijah. His name was Elisha. And when Elijah was about to leave this world, he brought Elisha to the same place at Jordan where he many years later baptized Jesus as John the Baptist. Now Elisha, Jesus, is asking Elijah, please, Master, give me the double of your wisdom. And Elijah said, if you can see me as I go in my chariot of fire, it's given to you. And that's exactly what it is. It is given to. And you can see here on this lovely icon that here you have Elijah in his wagon. And you see, where is it? There is the mantle that he's giving to, which is all the office of the prophet that is being given to Elisha. You see? So, and there you have, here, you have the baptism many years later at the exact same spot where, so it is like now Jeshua is going to pay his due to John. He's actually going there to pay his due and say, yes, I am now accepted and I will now be the one who's carrying it on. And from that moment on, he's ready for it. But there's one thing that we have missed. How is Mary the Magdalene coming in here as the cup of Benjamin, the silver cup of Benjamin? You see, Jesus is of the tribe of David and of Joseph. And there is something in the whole political and religious situation at that time that in order to restore the Jewish nation and retake the temple and get the Romans out, two families has to be united. So already when Jeshua is 16 years old and Mary the Magdalene is 12 or 13 years old, there is a kind of fixed, not marriage at that time, but a fixed engagement where they hardly doesn't see anybody. They see each other. So they are just committed to each other now, because by uniting those two tribes, then the whole Jewish nation will be restored from the Romans. That is the thought about it. So Jeshua is going back to where he come from, and the thing I've just told you, his whole education. And Mary the Magdalene, she's going to Alexandria, where she's being taken in by the therapists, which was a mystery school where both women and men could come in. And we can read about it. Philo, from a Jewish philosopher from that time, have written extensively about the therapist and also a bit about the scenes. And from there we can pick up a lot of information about how they, you should imagine that Mary the Magdalene, she will come there as a very young girl. And she's living now with her teacher, an elder woman. They are living in a hut. They have each their room. And every week, all the week, they work extensively into what that girl, trying to find out what is the purpose of this girl. Of course, they knew that she had this role to play, so she was having the whole thing, the whole package, being a healer, a stargazer, knowing about herbs, knowing about prophecy, all these things. She became what you would say a doctor in its highest aspect, of the word, not just a doctor in this or that, but for the whole human being, physical, psychological, and spiritual. And after that, she has her final initiation as a moon priestess. And after the break, I will I will tell you more about what that's all about, because I actually met one, and I think you will get some inspiration when I tell you this story. But anyway, so when she's finished with her education, and it's all coordinated, so when Jesus or Joshua is finished with him, they meet up where? In Cana. And you remember the story about the wedding in Cana. That is actually the wedding of Yeshua and Mary the Magdalene. And from that moment on, they really went on the mission that were to last 3 years. And she became the disciple that became the teacher of the women disciples. And he was, of course, the teacher of the male disciples. They were traveling side by side in equality. And that is something that is, you should remember that when Jesus had died on the cross and he was just hovering between the worlds, so to speak, before he chose to show himself in his light body. See, as we can read in both the New Testament, but especially in the Gospel of Mary, when she has seen Joshua standing up from the grave, she went back to Jerusalem and said, friends, I have seen my beloved in a vision, raising from the dead. And from, we can read in the New Testament, from that moment, Peter is actually about to strangle her. Because he never understood anything about what Joshua and her were all about. And he was actually jealous among them, because he saw for himself that he was the one who was sitting at the right hand of the master and ruling everything, building a church. That was why Joshua, he foresaw it all. He said, you are the stone of that church. Get behind me, Satan. Because Peter was always, he was really a huge believer, but he was a simple man, and he did not know about the I am and what it really meant and what it took in order to. That was much more like Philip and Thomas and John. Those people, they knew exactly what it was all about. So you should imagine that when it's only because I think it's Philip who interferes and said, if the master could listen to this woman, why can we not? But there's no doubt, from that moment on, we hear nothing more about her. And from that moment on, all the groups, almost all the groups, are actually doing a character murder on her. For 325 years, that's what's going on. She becomes a simple prostitute. Why? Because the word for moon priestess in Aramaic has many layers, and it can mean in some way prostitute, but not in the way that we think about a prostitute. But as years came by, that's what she became, But she was a moon priestess, knowing a whole lot of things that she was giving to Jesus. Remember, I'll just read this before we have a break, that in the Gospel of the Nazarenes, Yeshua is actually saying this, and just listen carefully. I and my bride are one, just as Miriam the Magdalene, whom I have chosen and sanctified as an example for myself, is one with me. I and my bride are one, just as Miriam the Magdalene, whom I have chosen and sanctified as an example to myself, is one with me. Yeshua is talking on one side of a bride, and on the other side about Mary the Magdalene. And he's both one with the bride and the Mary Magdalene. What is he talking about? You see, bride in Aramaic, kalta, has many meanings. It could actually also mean what we today would understand as anima, the feminine principle within man. And what Yeshua is saying here, I and my anima, I have discovered my feminine principle within me. And that principle I now have recognized, see it mirrored in this woman, Mary the Magdalene. And therefore, I've chosen her as an example, as a teacher in many ways for me, because we are one. It's not just beautiful. I mean, it's unfathomable. I mean, wow. So we have to understand that it must have been the same way for Mary the Magdalene, that Yeshua represented the masculine principle within her. So in that way, they were mirroring each other. More about that later. Mary the Magdalene, what does it mean? Does it mean that she came from Magdala? No. There was many small cities at that time called Magdala, meaning a high place. But Miriam the Magdalene, Miriam Magdalene means Miriam the exalted one, the one who is above things and can see things, you know. And funny enough, when you read the gospel of Mary, her own gospel, that is exactly what she's saying, that we in the future, this is the thing that it will be open for us if we want to, when our eyes become one single eye and there's no more darkness. And when we turn on the switch for the I am within us and understand what the kingdom of heaven, what it's all about, and we start to let it shine out there and just to share it with everybody, because we cannot lose anything. There's nothing to lose. The only thing we can lose is ourselves when we turn our backs to all the gifts we were given. Instead of being so much taken by all the new stuff that we can buy, and I mean, it's also fascinating that there's no end to it, you know. And when you are bought one thing, you want another thing. And so we know all this, of course we know. So the real gift is for free. It has always been there and will always be there. And just think about it. Next time you go out in life, on the street tomorrow, don't ever think about, I'm now doing a good deed. I'm doing charity by going there. Forget it. Just do it. Don't think, go and do it. That was exactly, because then the presence of God it's like turning on the switch, you know. And the light is there. You cannot fathom anything. You don't have to understand anything. Just turn on the switch. The minute you begin to think really about it, that's when the noise starts, you know. There's one thing we have to understand, that we here in this world, we are living in the world of questions. And if we want real answers, we need to go to the world of answers. And Yeshua and the Essenes knew about that. More about that after the break. Now I'll give the word to David and Andrew. They know much more about what's going to happen now.
Thank you very much indeed, Lars, for that spiritual nourishment. I don't know whether you've noticed in the participant numbers, it keeps hovering around 144, which you'll know is a significant number, being 12 times 12. So we're 144 on this call. I think what we'll do now is we'll take a 5-minute comfort break. And then immediately after that, I just want to give you a little bit background about the Scientific and Medical Network for those of you who don't know about it. And then we'll go back to Lars. He'll introduce us to some practices. And then we'll have some time for discussion. And I'm not sure whether we'll manage to get into small groups or not. I think we have to see how things evolve. So let's take a 5-minute break now. And so we'll be back at 21:50 or 21:50 for me. So no, 10:02. Okay. And I'm not sure what else he's got to say immediately. And then we'll have some time to open things up for discussion. And if we need to go on a little bit longer than 1/2 the hour, then we'll do so, but not too much longer. So Lars, back to you, and I'm reminded of your compatriot, Soren Kierkegaard, who, when he was living in the 19th century, he said almost exactly what you were saying about Christianity. He saw there was something missing.
Hmm.
And what you've been providing, he would not have provided what you have provided, except insofar as he provided an existential perspective. And
Hmm.
what you've been doing this evening, you've been providing some spiritual nourishment, actual substance to what's been evacuated, the living water being drained out,
Yeah.
some aspects of Christianity. So back to you for the second part. And we've got another, in total, without extra time, as they would say in football, we've got another 35 minutes or so.
Okay.
So back to you.
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, I actually don't want to take much more time of you because I'll do some practical things now just to, you can have a feel of what we are talking about here. But you probably have a lot of questions about Mary the Magdalene, Yeshua, whatever. And maybe it was much better that you came on with those questions and we could have I could try and answer some of them. You should remember, I've been studying these things also about Mary the Magdalene since the 80s, when the first English edition of the Nag Hammadi library came about, and I was reading it from cover to cover, and also stumbled, of course, on the Gospel of Philip. And when I read this, suddenly I stumbled on that sentence that Mary the Magdalene was the disciple that Yeshua loved the most and often kissed on the, and then there was the brackets, because we did not know what part of the body Yeshua was actually kissing her on. Of course, that was something I was very curious to find out, because to me it was a shock that he was kissing a woman again and again. You know, that was really a shock to me in the 80s. So,
well, let's take some questions now, and then maybe we could finish with a practice just to kind of center ourselves. But we'll take some questions now. So whoever's got a question, as Andrew said, raise your hand, and then we'll identify you, and you can come forward. So I haven't seen any hands going up yet, but I no doubt they're on the way to going up. Yeah, Angus Nisbet, you're quick off the mark. So just unmute yourself and ask your question, Angus.
Lars, I thought I particularly enjoyed the first 70% of your talk. I think there are some historical questions about Mary Magdalene, and a lot of your history probably comes from some of the Gnostic Gospels. And I think there's some question about their validity, but I'm going to skip over that because I don't want to get stuck into that. But what I just wanted to ask you about was a little bit about the Aramaic and the Hebrew as well. And what I was interested in was the fact you were talking about the kingdom of God, Malkuta Shemaya. Shemayim also means heavens, and it has the word in it mayim, which of course is mem yod mem, which is water. And then you did talk a bit about water. When you were talking about Jesus at the well, I was reminded of the woman at the well who said to him, you know, where is this water you're talking about? And he said that, you know, I can give you water that will well up to eternal life. And I wonder whether you saw a link between Shemayim, which is the Hebrew of Shemaiah, of course, heaven. So that was one question, and bringing in the Mayim. And the other question, very quick question, is Melchior, king, Melech. Again, there's very similar words, aren't there, in the Hebrew? And the question I suppose I have is Meshiach, which is Messiah. I believe that also comes from the same beginning, not the full milk, but the beginning. But perhaps you could tell us about that.
Yeah, that's another root word, so to speak. It's actually not that connected, but your first question was about the mime and I mean
water.
Yeah, the mime is the mime is that element that is presented or symbolized by the mem, the letter M, and the fire element is represented by the shin of Shemaiah. But I didn't really understand your question, because the mime is, and the Shemaiah, what was the question about it? I did not really get it, you know.
You need to unmute yourself, Angus.
Could you start?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I won't. Yes. So all I was asking was Mayim, as in Shemayim, which is the Hebrew word for heavens. And
Yeah.
Is that related? Do you think that's related to the root word of the kingdom of the kingdom of God?
Yeah. You should see, Aramaic is the mother of Hebrew. I mean, they are completely. It's exactly working the same way. It's just the pronunciation that is different. It's exactly the same. But you know, if you go to Israel today and you go to a secular Jew, he would know nothing about the workings of his own language. You should go to the Kabbalistic rabbis in order to have that knowledge. The same way here in Denmark, all our priests are learning Hebrew, but they aren't given that key to the psychology behind it. And that's everything there is, you know, or else it's just scratching the surface, you know. But it's exactly, you can find the same in both Arabic, Hebrew, that both of them stems from Aramaic. Actually, when I went to Syria, I asked their priest there where the Aramaic language really stemmed from, because nobody really knows about it. And he said it was the angels who brought it to mankind for them in order to understand, to speak to God. And I find that very poetic and very true.
I'm not. I think that's a nice idea. I'm not sure it's true. I think it comes from the Akkadian, which was originally a sort of a development of the Sumerian cuneiform script, and I think they all originally come from Akkadian, which was the mother of Aramaic. But
exactly.
Okay, I think we should move on from that. Thank you very much, Angus. Saraswati, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much for this beautiful lecture. It's been so lovely. I have two questions. One is, I don't know where I got this idea, but I have the idea that Yeshua spent some time in India. So that's one question I have. And then the second is a more personal question related to, gosh, it's such a big group, but when else am I going to have a chance to ask you this question? So I have a similar experience, at least I know nothing about your experience, except that a pretty marked 3-year period of darkness before something really ignited in you. And I can really relate to that. And I wondered if you might have any advice for me to help get ignited. Thank you. I'll take my answer off of mute, on mute rather.
And again, I forgot all about your first question. I'm sorry. What was it?
It was Jesus, about Jesus being in India?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we don't know for certain, but that is probably where he went. He went to Persia, almost for sure, and he went to Egypt. That's no doubt about it. He probably also went to India, you know, by the Silk Route. Yeah, and some advice. It is to start to do spiritual work, and to start to listen to yourself. And there's so many dogmas everywhere, and I think the time has come to really start to pay due to the kingdom of heaven within. And you can do that in many ways, but you have to look for what really suits you, because that's where we are today. There's no more gurus, there's no more this, there's no more that. There's only us now rising up, taking responsibility for ourselves, and start to work with the kingdom of heaven and all the gifts we were given. And one of the things I'm going to do in a minute is a song to Miriam that you can pick up on very, very easily. And that is, from my experience, it really kind of activate the presence so immediately, because you don't have to think in order to sing this. And by that sound and by that melody, something will open up within you, and find things like that. Make your own prayers, find your own words, make your own songs. You know, have trust in that thing within you. And that's because prayer is like a knife. It's the only tool that can cut through all the noise around us and within us. And that's why we need to understand what prayer is. Prayer is not for God. I mean, the God principle don't care about prayers, but we do. And we need that, because we need to connect to our I am potential and our Shem. So that's my best advice.
Thank you.
Start doing work and do it every day, as often as possible.
Thank you. Let's move on to Neve now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for this evening. It's been wonderful. I'll try to say this really quick for you. But at the start of your talk, you went back to Genesis and the idea of all of this, the world being created and God hovering over it with his ideas and making manifest this world. And then you went on to talk about the masculine feminine split and how female characters like Mary Magdalene were treated in the New Testament. And I wondered if you could speak to that, like masculine feminine split a little bit more, because way back in Genesis and in Adam and Eve, the way Eve is treated as a character was always very disturbing to me, the way she was made from the rib of man and then she was cursed. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, the Adam and Eve thing is a spell of times that is far gone. We are not there anymore. So we should not pay any attention to such things, you know, because we have been through evolvement in many ways. We have had the women's slip. We had, I mean, I remember in the 60s when we had the women's slip, I happened to accidentally open the door for a lady, and she just gave me the whole, you know, commodity. You know, from that day on, I never opened the door for anybody anymore. But, you know, we have been through all this. Now, you know, we should not waste more time of the old dogmas. We are now, and you have all the knowledge you have come into with this life. I mean, I haven't met anybody who didn't know all these things already. People just seems to have forgotten it, or else they don't have trust in themselves anymore. But I mean, we are both masculine and feminine, and it's all there, you know. So we need to work on that, and that marriage is first and foremost something that must go on within us, you know. The bridal chamber with the masculine and the feminine must go on. And then maybe we can go out and find a partner that we can be equal to, because it is equality that is needed. You know, I met an old high priest of the Order of the World Mother that I have described in my book, The Grail, and Sylvia, and she said that you know, men and women, they spend so much energy on understanding each other. The woman wants to understand the man, but she cannot. The man wants to understand the woman, and he cannot. You must be courageous. And if you have a partner, you must dare to open even the inner doors of your inner room for that man. And if he enters and cannot understand what he sees, it doesn't matter. But the only thing is needed is he needs to respect it and accept what he sees, because that is part of you. And if he cannot accept you, I mean, how should you ever be? Even if he's the best looking man on the earth, and you think, wow, I have really scored something there. But if he cannot see you, and if you don't know who you are, I mean, it's just like going into the desert, you know. No, we need to have the guts and the honesty to open us to who we really are. We don't have to pretend anymore. And that's the secret, I think. Don't pretend anything. You don't have to pretend an orgasm on Friday evenings. You don't have to pretend this. You have to put, go and be exactly who you are. You have needs, but those needs, you need to ask yourself, do I really need that? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Those things are, I think, is important in order to find out who you are. And when you have found out who you are and have an inkling about it, go and look for somebody who can match that. Yeah. And if you cannot find anybody, wait.
Thank you. Thank you. My sense is that I think we should take the two hand questions that are up from Suna and Barbara, and then we should go into the practical spiritual exercises and things. So Suna, over to you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got some information that Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, was actually one of the founding, if not the founding, Essene. And can you speak to that a little bit? And in addition, is there still some leaving out of feminine influences in our understandings today?
Yeah, there is many living today, feminine teachers and holders of the light. Yes, of course. Anna was certainly one of the leading figures when the Essene community was established. No doubt about it. But the foundation was, as I told you, made by Elijah 700 years before. And from that came the whole movement of the Essenes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sylvia, the high priestess I was talking about, was certainly one of the women for our time also that knew about all these things that I'm talking about here.
And you can also, yes, you can read about that in the O manuscript. Which volume did you say that was?
The last book, the Grail.
The Grail. Okay, good. Right, Barbara, over to you.
Hi, evening. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lars.
Hi.
My question is around the title of the event, which was the God Formula. And I was kind of hoping, I think, that I would take away a formula, being a bit more of a sciencey person. And I didn't really get that. And I'm just wondering, would you describe what you've been speaking about succinctly in some kind of formula?
I don't know if you can see it here.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll find it here maybe. Because it was, there is a Danish physicist called Holger Bech Nielsen from the Niels Bohr Institute. And he was mingling around with a formula for God, but it became very materialistic kind of formula. And I thought, I think I have my say into this, because there's another formula. And that formula are actually some of the things I talked about in the first, the kingdom of heaven being within us, the masculine and the feminine, as man and woman we were created, and so forth. All these things, the I am and all this. But there is actually, I don't know if you can see it, a formula here. Mm-hmm. The first letter of the Aleph, and Mem and the Shin.
Yes.
And then it comes out in the symbol of the dot being for the masculine and the circle for the feminine. And when you go into the book, you will see how the dot, what it represents in the male and what is represented by the feminine. And I've just played it by that and use it as a tool to explain the Aramaic understanding of what God is or could be, a creative principle that can be activated of everyone, wherever we are. So that was the idea of it. But there's so much more in the book, and I would try to make it a little more exciting here, than to just to go into dry grammatical things, you know. Because
yeah.
so that,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So Lars, let's move into
Yeah.
a more experiential mode.
Yes. Okay.
To finish with, as it were.
Let's go. I told you about Malkuta de Shema, the kingdom of heaven. And you may ask, what is the key to that heaven? And that is, of course, Ruka de Kucha. Ruka meaning spirit, breath, electricity, magnetism, vibration, even thunder. De Kucha, as it was meant to be, or holy. So this is Holy Spirit, Ruka de Kucha. And I've been working with those two concepts for so many years now, Malkuta de Shema and Ruka de Kucha. So you should imagine that when Yeshua was talking about the Ruka de Kucha, people immediately saw the picture of a bridge going from their breath over to God. And every time you consciously connect to that bridge, you can actually have a conversation with God, a silent conversation. And when you draw your last breath, when you are leaving this world, it is said within the Aramaic tradition that now you step over the bridge for the last time, you know, like, and then you're gone. So that is Ruka de Kucha. What I have been experiencing is that working with that as a mantra, for example, you draw your breath all the way down to your stomach. Try to do that now. Just sit and be relaxed. Take a deep breath so the stomach come out, you know, is expanded. Short break, then exhale and draw the muscles of the stomach in. Pause. Inhale, stomach out. Exhale, stomach in. And this is something you can train to do, so it will become automatically when you choose to be. You don't have to think about it. It's just something that goes that way. And when you are skilled in that, you can add a visualization that you are drawing your breath into your heart chakra in the middle of the breastbone and out again. And you can use the mantra Ruka de Kucha, inhaling, Malkuta de Shema, exhaling. Inhale, Ruka de Kucha, exhale, Malkuta de Shema. Or if you think that it's too weird with the Aramaic now, you can just use Holy Spirit, inhale, and exhale, Kingdom of Heaven. Inhale, Ruka de Kucha, or Holy Spirit, exhale, Kingdom of Heaven. I used that for many years, and it's so forceful. Holy Spirit, Kingdom of Heaven. I'm actually now asking the Holy Spirit to come to my help in order to activate the Kingdom of Heaven within and kind of create a sacred space around me through the Kingdom of Heaven. Remember, Yeshua says it's within us and all around us. So this is a way to create a sacred space. I've done it for many years doing healings. If I come into a room where there's a tense situation, I sit in the corner silently, and before you know it, that situation is just not there anymore. Just try it. You are actually in that way connecting to the I am within you. And the presence of God is activated all around you. The sacred space is actually the Spirit of God, the presence of God being there. To be or not to be, that's the question. To be or not to be, that's the question. The mystery of becoming. To become what we ought to be, to become what we were meant to be in this life. There's only one you, but you carry this kingdom within you. And through that you can connect to anything. You just need to go and work with it. I do it on a daily basis, wherever I am. Supermarket, breakfast table, in the school, where my kids go. There's no limitations to it. When you speak to somebody, if you have a client in your healing room, while this man is talking, or woman, you can just have this going to and forth. It's so simple. You have it for free. And if you work with it, it will take you right into the holy of the holies, from where there's no limitations. From there, the sky, so to speak, is the limit. The Shemaya. That's where we want to go. Holy Spirit, Kingdom of Heaven. Holy Spirit, Kingdom of Heaven. I am a divine deacon, a servant of the light, traveling to your vision without wrong, without right. I am the resurrection, a healer who leaves no trace. I pray and walk in silence, invisible by your grace. I am transfiguration, a leaf blown by the wind. There never was a beginning, and there'll never be an end. Before we close, I would like to share with you the song that is dedicated to the feminine principle in this. And there's only some simple words. Mariam Mare. And Mare means master in Aramaic. And you guess what? In an old Gospel of Philip that was found on Mount Athos, Mariam the Magdalene is called Mariam the Mara, Mariam the Master. You are free to join in. I will try to do it as softly as possible so the sound will not be too harsh for you. Because every time I talk about Yeshua, I talk about her. And every time I talk about her, he is included. They are inseparable. They are one. Maria, 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 Maria. Maria, 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 Mariam, 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 Mariam. May God bless you and your loved ones. May His light shine upon you always. Thank you for listening and being part of this session. And also thanks to David and Andrew for making this happen. It's been a huge experience for me. I hope for us too, for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Lars, for all that you've given us this evening, sending us, in a sense, back to ourselves to remind ourselves of who we really are. And I think it's part of the human condition to fall into density, to forget who we are, to forget our origins, and to forget who other people are as well. That we have, and what you've done this evening is you've reminded us that this I am presence is within all of us. Mm-hmm. And the I am presence combines the point and the circle, the masculine and the feminine. Mm-hmm. And we can recognize that within ourselves and then recognize it in others, and then be open to that exchange, to that common journey that we're all on. Mm. And I think that also one of the things you've emphasized this evening, which I think is very important in the overall sense of the revival of Gnosis, is the primacy in the Gnostic Gospels of Mary over Peter. Mm. And as you pointed out in the Gospel of Mary, that's very, very clear, and it's also clear in the Gospel of the Beloved Companion, which claims to be the complete Gospel of Mary, and it's a very close relationship between the two in terms of the outlook and the content. And this brings one back, I think, to the Cathars and the whole presence of Mary in this region from which I'm speaking this evening, and which you'll be visiting again very soon. So there is this sense of a revival of Gnosis, a revival of mysticism, a revival of the prophetic impulse. And I think everybody on this call is, to some extent, a part of that. Which is why we're all here together, all the 144 people who are here this evening. And so I thank you really from the bottom of my heart for what you've been able to share inspirationally, and to bring us back to ourselves, and also for that beautiful blessing at the end.
I also, before we go, I really feel I have to also thank and pay my dues to Margaret Barker, a brilliant scholar of living in London.
Margaret Barker, yes.
She's so brilliant, and her work is so precious. And also April de Konig, who is a brilliant scholar into and there's so many translations, and but I would anytime recommend this one.
Well, here's another of hers.
Oh yeah.
And as it happens, April is speaking on a webinar for us on this very topic on the 29th of September.
Yeah, but
we have some other Gnostics coming up for you. So just before we sign off and greet each other in signing off, I just want to say that next week we have another webinar with Serge Beddington Behrens, and all the details, you'll have been seeing some of the details coming up. And then the week after, as I mentioned, we have a forum so that you can find out a bit more about the Scientific and Medical Network. And then in the 5th of August, we have Rianne Eisler, who's the author of The Chalice and the Blade, which is a seminal book that I'm sure many of you will know. And she's going to be talking about her new book, Nurturing Our Humanity. And I'll be joined by my daughter, Charlotte, for that conversation, which I'm really looking forward to. And then we're going into the medical health field the following week with Rob Verkerk, talk a little bit about how he understands the current health and vaccine issues that we're all in the middle of. And so there's a lot of interesting webinars coming up, and I hope you'll be able to join us for that, and do sign up for our news and to keep up with our activity. And so once again, Lars, thank you so much for your presence this evening, for what you've elicited in us. And I look forward to greeting you and giving you a hug when we meet, and without any masks on or anything like that. So,
thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. Andrew's going to unmute us now so we can greet each other, and blessings on one. And I'm just going to, I haven't had a candle going, so I'm going to blow the light out and send it to you all. Light and love.
Thanks, everyone. You can unmute yourselves and say a quick goodbye and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, love.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. God bless. Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Lars. Thank